Everyone said they were made for each other. But somehow, destiny forgot to make them lovers. Kayla and Daniel had been inseparable since university. From eating noodles at midnight to sharing the same umbrella in the rain, their friendship had survived everything. She knew his moods, his smiles, even the way his voice softened whenever he was about to lie. To everyone else, they were the perfect duo. To Kayla, he was the air she couldn't stop breathing. But to Daniel, she was just his person, the one he could call at 2 a.m. to talk about life, girls, and business ideas. Sometimes, when they laughed too long, she'd catch herself staring at him, at the dimple that formed whenever he smiled, at the careless way he ruffled his hair, at the veins that ran down his arms. Then she'd blink fast and remind herself, "You're his best friend, not his woman." One evening, as they sat on his couch watching an old movie, he said the words that burned her soul. "Kayla, I think I've found her." Her heart skipped. "Found who?" "The girl I want to marry someday," he said, smiling at his phone. "Her name's Lydia. She's perfect." Kayla laughed, too loud, too fake. "Perfect? She better be, if she's taking my best friend away." He chuckled, reaching for her hand. "No one can take me away from you. You're my everything." The sentence should have comforted her, but it didn't. Because everything meant something different to her than it did to him. That night when she got home, she cried quietly into her pillow. Not the kind of tears that begged for pity, the kind that burned. Because she knew that from now on, every moment she spent with him would belong to another woman. Still, she couldn't walk away. She told herself she'd rather have a piece of Daniel as a friend than lose him entirely as a stranger. So she stayed. She laughed at his jokes. She helped him choose gifts for Lydia. She kept loving him in silence, pretending the friendship didn't feel like punishment. But deep down she knew. One day, silence would betray her. 2 weeks later, Daniel started calling less. When he did, his sentences always began with Lydia. "Lydia said this. Lydia loves that restaurant. Lydia thinks I should change my haircut." Kayla learned to smile through it all, though every word felt like a knife dipped in honey. He came over one evening, excited like a child. "Kay, I need your help," he said, dropping a box of chocolates on her table. She folded her arms. "Help? What kind?" "Lydia's birthday is next week. I want to do something special, something romantic. You're the best at this stuff." The air went still. Kayla forced a laugh. "So now I'm your relationship coach." "You're my best friend," he said gently. "Who else would I trust?" That night they sat side by side, scrolling through Pinterest ideas. Every time he smiled at a picture of roses or a candlelit dinner, her stomach twisted. He looked happy. Happy because of another woman. When he left, he hugged her tightly, his cologne filling her lungs. "Thanks, Kay. You're one in a million." She smiled into his shoulder, whispering the words she'd never dare say aloud. "And yet, you'll never choose me." Days later, she went on a date with a guy from work named Toby. Tall, nice, harmless. She wanted to feel something, anything that could make her forget Daniel. But even as Toby laughed across the table, she caught herself checking her phone, hoping Daniel would text. He did. "Can I call you? Need your opinion on something urgent." She stared at the message, her heart thudding painfully. She excused herself from the date, stepped outside, and answered. His voice was warm. "Kay, do you think women prefer roses or lilies?" She closed her eyes. "Daniel, you're calling me about flowers while I'm on a date." "Wait, a date?" He sounded surprised. "With who?" She smiled bitterly. "Someone who actually wants me." He went quiet for a second. Then softly, "You deserve the best, Kay. Don't let anyone treat you less." The irony almost made her laugh. Because at that very moment she realized, the only man who ever made her feel loved was also the reason she couldn't love anyone else. It was raining that night, the kind of rain that makes the city look like it's crying. Kayla sat on Daniel's couch, watching him pace around with a ring box in his hand. "I'm proposing to Lydia next weekend," he said, eyes bright. I've never been this sure about anything in my life. Her heart cracked quietly. Wow, she managed to whisper. That's fast. He smiled. When you know, you know. She nodded, forcing a grin, but her hands were trembling. Can I see the ring? She asked. He opened the box and it shimmered. A silver promise meant for someone else. It's perfect, she said, her voice breaking in the middle of the sentence. He noticed. Kay, are you okay? That question, the one he always asked, was the one that broke her. No, Daniel, she said softly, looking at him through wet lashes. I'm not okay. He froze. She took a deep breath. I can't keep pretending to be happy for you. Every time you talk about her, it feels like you're cutting pieces out of me. I've loved you for years, Daniel. I've loved you through every heartbreak, every bad haircut, every stupid smile. And it's killing me. Silence. Only the sound of the rain tapping against the window. Daniel stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Kayla. No, don't say it, she whispered, shaking her head. I know you love her. I just needed to stop lying to myself. He stepped closer, too close. His breath touched her skin. You think I don't love you, he said quietly. Her heart skipped. What? I'm getting married, yes. But it doesn't mean I don't love you too. Her breath caught. Daniel. Before she could finish, his lips were on hers. Soft, desperate, trembling with guilt and hunger. The kiss tasted of everything they'd buried for years. Friendship, heartbreak, and forbidden desire. When he pulled away, his voice was rough. You're my whole life, Kay. I can't lose you. She stood there, shocked, her heart screaming yes, her mind whispering run. But for once, she didn't think of right or wrong. For once, she let herself have the man she'd only ever dreamed of. And that was how the secret began. With a kiss that should have never happened, and a love that was already cursed. The next few weeks were torture dressed in lace and champagne. Kayla became his unofficial wedding planner, choosing colors, venues, flower arrangements, even helping Lydia pick her bridal gown. Every smile she gave Lydia felt like betrayal. Every compliment she made sounded like lies bleeding from her lips. Daniel would sneak her looks when no one watched, those lingering glances that said too much and promised everything. Sometimes his hand would brush hers when passing fabric samples, and the air between them would thicken with guilt and desire. One afternoon, while helping him pick his suit, she closed the fitting room curtain behind them. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie, his reflection meeting hers. How do I look? He asked. She swallowed hard. Like a man who doesn't belong to me. He turned slowly. Kayla. She shook her head, tears glistening. Do you have any idea what it feels like planning the day you'll officially break my heart? He stepped closer, lifting her chin gently. I told you. Loving her doesn't mean I stopped loving you. Then what am I, Daniel? She asked, voice trembling. Your escape. Your sin. He didn't answer, he kissed her instead. It was rougher this time. Desperate. She pushed him back, whispering, someone could walk in. Let them. He breathed against her neck, and she melted into him, every ounce of restraint vanishing. Afterwards, she stood by the mirror, fixing her hair, avoiding his eyes. You'll go home to her tonight, she said quietly. He sighed. Kay, don't do this. Don't what? She snapped softly. Don't feel. Don't exist. Don't love you. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. The next day they went ring shopping. Lydia was late, and while they waited, he leaned close and brushed her ear with his lips. I can't stop thinking about last night. She smiled bitterly. You shouldn't. But I can't help it, he whispered, fingers grazing her thigh under the table. When Lydia finally arrived, Kayla's heart sank. The woman was glowing, pure, untouched by the sins swirling around her. Lydia clasped Kayla's hand and said, You're such a good friend. I don't know what I'd do without you. Kayla forced a smile, but inside her soul screamed. Because what Lydia didn't know was that the man she was marrying was already hers in all the ways that mattered, except the one that counted. The wedding came and went like a storm. Kayla watched from the second row, her smile perfectly practiced, her eyes glassy with heartbreak. She clapped when they kissed, laughed when they danced, and died quietly inside when Daniel called another woman his wife. After the ceremony, she told herself it was time to let go. But she couldn't. The silence that followed his honeymoon was unbearable. Her nights became longer, lonelier, haunted by the ghost of his hands and the taste of his mouth. When he finally called weeks later, she didn't even let him finish before saying yes to meeting him. He looked tired, handsome still, but weighed down by something new. "Marriage feels different," he confessed, staring into his drink. "She's amazing, but sometimes I miss talking to you before I sleep." Her chest tightened. "Then talk to her, Daniel. That's your wife." He smiled faintly. "But she's not you." That was how it started again. Late-night calls, secret visits, the same couch where it all began. And then, one evening as he drove her home in the rain, he said the words that reignited the madness. "Move in with us." She turned sharply. "What? You've been struggling with rent. There's an extra room. Lydia will understand." Kayla laughed bitterly. "You really think your wife will agree to that?" "She will if I say so." And he did. Lydia protested, of course. "I can handle her being your friend," she said firmly, "but not living under my roof." Daniel's tone hardened. "I'm the man of this house, Lydia. My decision is final." 2 days later, Kayla moved in. Her things were small. Boxes of books, clothes, memories. Lydia barely spoke to her. The house was cold with unspoken tension, but Kayla didn't care. Every evening she got to see him. Every night she could hear his footsteps down the hall. It didn't take long before the sneaking began. Daniel would put sedatives in his wife's tea, harmless, he said, just so she'd sleep deeper. Then, when the house fell silent, he'd slip into Kayla's room. The first night she whispered, "This is wrong." He kissed her shoulder. "Then let's be wrong together." And they were over and over until guilt stopped feeling like guilt and started feeling like routine. In the mornings they played the perfect friends. Lydia cooked breakfast, Daniel smiled, and Kayla sat across from them pretending not to know what it felt like to be the other woman at the table. Sometimes she got daring. She'd walk past him in shorts, brush her hand over his back, or even smack his but lightly when Lydia turned away. He'd glare, but his eyes always softened. It was madness, sweet, reckless madness. Kayla had him every night, but somehow she still didn't have him at all. And deep down, she knew this couldn't last forever. Because secrets this dark don't stay buried. They always come back, wearing someone else's face. It started on a Sunday morning. Lydia was in the kitchen making pancakes when she casually announced, "My cousin Jordan is coming to stay for a while. He just got back from London." Kayla froze, her spoon midair. Another person in the house meant another set of eyes. Eyes that could see through the cracks she and Daniel worked so hard to hide. When Jordan arrived, the air shifted instantly. He was tall, clean-shaven, and disarmingly confident, the kind of man who carried quiet danger in his smile. His handshake lingered just a little too long. His gaze dipped just a little too deep. Daniel noticed. He stood behind Kayla at the door, arm around his wife's waist, his eyes narrowing as he watched Jordan's expression. Over dinner, Jordan was charm itself. He asked about Kayla's work, her favorite books, her laugh echoing louder than it had in weeks. Daniel's fork paused mid-bite. "Jordan," he said casually, "Kayla's like a sister to me. Don't get any ideas." Jordan chuckled. "Relax, in-law. I was just being friendly." But the glint in his eyes said otherwise. From that night things began to shift. Kayla found herself avoiding Daniel's late-night visits, her heart suddenly restless. When Jordan spoke, she listened, not because of his words, but because he looked at her like she was something to be wanted, not hidden. One evening, Jordan found her sitting alone in the garden. "You don't talk much," he said, sitting beside her. "Talking causes trouble," she replied softly. Maybe you like trouble, he teased. She smiled despite herself. Maybe I've had enough of it. He studied her for a moment. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you really here? You're beautiful, Kayla. You could have your own home, your own life. Instead, you're living with a married couple. Doesn't that feel strange? The words sliced through her like truth wrapped in silk. She looked away. I told you I'm just his friend. He leaned closer. You sure about that? Her throat went dry. Yes. But her trembling voice said otherwise. Later that night, Daniel stormed into her room, his jaw tight. I don't like the way you look at him. She crossed her arms. He's your wife's cousin, Daniel. What's your problem? My problem is you forgetting who you belong to. She laughed bitterly. Belong. You're married. You don't get to say that. He grabbed her wrist gently but firmly. Kayla, his tone softened. Don't let anyone come between us. For the first time she didn't melt. She pulled her hand free. Maybe someone should. From that day everything changed. She stopped waiting for his texts, stopped sneaking kisses in the dark. Her laughter, the one Daniel once owned, now came easily when Jordan was around. And Daniel, for the first time, was the one watching her from the sidelines, tasting the jealousy he once fed her. The house no longer felt like home. It felt like a stage, one where everyone was acting, pretending not to notice the tension thick enough to choke on. Kayla avoided Daniel. Not completely, just enough to make him notice. She laughed louder with Jordan, wore dresses she knew Daniel hated, and spent her evenings talking in the garden where Daniel could see them from the window. First he ignored it. Then he couldn't. One night, after dinner, Daniel followed her into the hallway. His voice was low but sharp. What game are you playing? She blinked innocently. Game? With Jordan, he snapped. You're doing it on purpose. She crossed her arms. Doing what, Daniel? Talking to a man who's allowed to want me. Don't be smart with me. Then stop treating me like a secret, she burst out. You hide me, you use me, and you tell me you love me while you sleep next to your wife every night. He stepped closer, anger flaring. Watch your mouth. Or what? She shot back, trembling. You'll hit me. Or maybe you'll kiss me and call it love again. The words sliced through him. He stepped back, guilt flashing in his eyes. You don't understand, Kayla. I'm trapped. No, she said softly. You're selfish. That night, she didn't answer when he knocked on her door. Instead, she sat with Jordan in the garden, her head resting lightly on his shoulder as they talked about nothing and everything. His voice calmed her in ways Daniel's never did, without chaos, without guilt. From the window upstairs, Daniel watched, his fists clenched, his heart pounding. For the first time, he felt what she had felt for years. Jealousy. The next morning he was cold, distant. Lydia noticed, but she couldn't guess why. The breakfast table felt like a war zone. 3 smiles and too many secrets. Later, when they were alone, Daniel cornered her in the hallway again. Stop this nonsense, he hissed. You're mine. I'm not yours, she said, her voice steady. I never was. You just borrowed me between your lies. He grabbed her arm, desperate now. Kayla, please. Don't do this to us. Us, she repeated, tears filling her eyes. What us, Daniel? You have a wife. You have a home. I was just a distraction you dressed up as love. He let go, his chest rising and falling. That's not true. Then prove it, she said. Divorce her. Silence. He looked at her, the woman who had built her world around him, and said the words that finally broke her. I can't. She's my wife. I love her. The tears fell before she could stop them. Then what am I? He whispered. You're my life, but in a different way. She stared at him for a long, painful moment. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that ends things. I'm done, Daniel. She packed that night. He begged, pleaded, even knelt, but she was already gone in her heart. Before dawn, she whispered to herself, I'll tell her everything. She deserves the truth. But truth is dangerous. And some men would rather destroy what they love than lose it. The suitcase lay open on the bed, half filled, half forgotten. Kayla's hands shook as she folded the dress he once said made her look like sunrise. It didn't matter now. Sunrise had turned to storm. Daniel stood in the doorway, eyes bloodshot, voice cracking. Kayla, please. Don't do this. She didn't turn. You've already done enough. He stepped closer. You can't leave like this. What about us? She laughed bitterly. Us. Daniel, there's no us. There's your wife. Or house. Or lies. I was just a chapter you never meant to finish. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a man at the edge of madness. I made mistakes, but you're the only one who really knows me. Don't throw that away. I'm not throwing it away, she said softly. I'm setting myself free. She zipped the bag and walked toward the door, but he blocked her path. You'll regret this. No, she whispered, eyes wet. I already do. When she tried to move past him, he grabbed her arm. You can't tell her, Kayla. Promise me. She shook her head. Lydia deserves the truth. His voice rose. You'll ruin my marriage. It was ruined the moment you kissed me, she snapped. The moment you called it love. He grabbed her again, desperation trembling in his fingers. I'm begging you. She jerked away. You should have begged for forgiveness, not silence. The argument swelled, voices echoing down the hall. Lydia was out visiting her sister. The house was theirs, the same house that had sheltered every lie. Kayla, he said, his voice shaking now, don't make me lose everything. She faced him, tears falling. You already have. You lost me. She turned toward the door, her bag in hand. He reached out, maybe to stop her, maybe to hold her, she would never know. Her heels slipped against the edge of the marble step. His hand brushed her shoulder, she spun, and her head struck the corner of the console table. The sound was small, almost gentle. Then silence. Daniel froze. Kayla, he whispered. She was on the floor, eyes half open, lips parted as if about to speak. Blood trickled down her temple, glinting like betrayal under the chandelier. He knelt beside her, shaking, pressing his hand against the wound. No, no, no. Her fingers twitched, reaching for him once, then stilled. The ring he'd helped her choose for Lydia slipped from his pocket and rolled across the floor, circling until it stopped beside her hand. By the time Lydia returned home, Daniel was sitting on the floor, her lifeless body in his arms, whispering the same words over and over. You're my whole life, my whole life. But love built on lies always ends this way. Not with a goodbye, but with a silence too heavy to bear.